Welcome to Swipe. Here's what's coming up for you on this week's show.
Chris finds out why pocket-sized gaming has become huge. I head to 1953 with residents of a dementia care home using virtual reality. And in our games review, Rick is escaping from jail.
That's all to come for you after a quick look at some of the tech news headlines that got us talking this week.
The first British eSports Championships for school-age and college students has been announced. The competition is hoping to find the next generation of highly talented professional gamers. A pilot running across 3 games, including League of Legends, begins next month, with the grand final set for 2019. Facebook has widened its investigation into possible Russian interference and influence in the EU referendum. It's written to MPs agreeing to their request for more information about potential coordinated activity on its site around the Brexit vote in 2016. 3/5 of new cars and vans should be electric by the year 2030 to meet the UK's legal targets to cut greenhouse gases. That's according to government climate advisors who've warned plans to cut greenhouse gases in the next 2 decades don't go far enough. While we're talking motors, check out the doors on that Toyota. America's biggest car show in Detroit brought us some futuristic offerings from auto manufacturers this week. And the latest in robo-industry tech has been on show at a robot expo in Japan, including an ambidextrous droid that folds t-shirts. The event organisers say they expect the service industry robotics market to be worth 900 billion yen in 2030. That's around £5.8 billion.
You know the video games industry is booming. That's why we talk about it here on Swipe every week. But here's the thought. What if the future of gaming lies in smartphones and not the big-name console titles you're used to hearing us talk about? Well, let's join Chris behind the scenes at one of the UK's leading mobile games companies.
These days, when you think of video games, it's probably images like this that spring to mind. Hollywood blockbuster-style gameplay with graphics that constantly push boundaries. Or virtual reality adding whole new levels of immersion. And we're forever seeing the console giants battling it out for supremacy.
Despite all this, the biggest market for games globally is on your phone. Mobile gaming accounts for nearly half of the world's $100 billion games industry, and it's now expected to surpass that level by 2020.
Space Ape is one of the UK's leading mobile games developers. Over 45 million people have played their creations, spending nearly £100 million on them.
When I first got into gaming in 2010, mobile gaming basically didn't exist. The hardware restrictions were really restrictive. In the space of just 7 years, that's gone from essentially nothing to a $45 billion a year industry. And so the approach to game development and players' expectations have really changed.
It's not just the technology that's changing. The profile of the average gamer is evolving too. What was once the territory of die-hard fans is becoming a place for casual enthusiasts.
We need to cater to people that want a short session, that just want to come in, maybe they're in the tube, maybe they're on the bus, maybe they're in the toilet, and they just want a 2-minute session to just, get that little kick. So that changes how we designed the whole game to allow for people to have that.
The market for mobile games is massive. Last year, games were the most downloaded type of app in both Google Play and the App Store. But smartphones have been around for a while, so why is this boom happening now?
The Asian market is having a huge impact on the West, particularly China, where mobile and free-to-play have been popular for a long time, a lot longer than they have over here. And now we're also seeing those companies expand into the West, bringing with them their game design and monetization trends, and they're also acquiring Western companies.
Here we go.
Celebrity endorsements are also making mobile games more mainstream. And this kind of branding plays a big part in the wider appeal. So it could be that the future of the industry lies not in our living rooms, but in our pockets. Chris Creegan, Sky News.
Now, this next topic is a serious one, but we hope you'll find it uplifting too. There's a project designed to help people with dementia to relive lost memories using immersive video. Here's how.
God save the Queen, for she's a jolly good fella.
Welcome to a reenactment of the Queen's Coronation Day from 1953, filmed in 360 degrees. Now here's what happened when we played the film to residents of a care home living with dementia.
My dear, what a wonderful lot of people. Oh, yeah.
And you put it up against your face like this. That's it.
Oh, yes. Oh.
And you can see all the way around in the street.
Oh, now we're outside somewhere. Where should we come from?
You tell me, can you see her?
And a big round of applause, everybody.
Sing song.
The virtual reality experience is part of a project called The Way Back to help spark lost memories and trigger conversations.
What's the song? Oh, you know what this one is?
Oh.
I wouldn't normally ask Mum if she remembers specific events because that's quite a challenging thing to do. Whereas when you've actually got a specific reaction to a specific thing, then you can explore it as a trigger to explore around it in a safe way.
General memories of street
rather
parties.
than asking a question which is much less likely to elicit any. It's more likely to elicit anxiety rather than, oh yes, I remember when.
The project was created by Andy and Dan, along with a group of friends who dedicated their spare time to making the film with a cast and crew of volunteers and a budget raised through crowdfunding. Much of the historical detail came from speaking to people who had actually been there.
Things like real moments that seemed to jog memories in the film, like the fish paste sandwiches being handed out, the food that was on the table, and the costumes that people were wearing at the fancy dress party afterwards, all came from conversations that we had here at the care home before we filmed it.
It was shot by many different people on the day, so we watched hours and hours of that footage just to try and kind of get it into our heads, what kind of, even the rosette, what the rosettes would have looked like, what the kind of...
Lots of homemade footage
lots
as well,
of
wasn't
homemade,
there?
They're hoping to make a series of films, forming a virtual reality memory bank, if they can get enough backing. Dan knows how effective sights and sounds can be for people with Alzheimer's after his father had the disease.
I took him on a drive back to his old sort of stomping ground, his old haunts in Camden Town, and it was like he was completely back in the room. You know, going down streets, he'd get all the memories back from that time.
Anyone can watch the film using a phone and a cardboard headset. The app's free, and Andy and Dan say they aren't making any money out of it. Not everyone will have happy memories of the same moment in time, so carers should be alert to any negative emotional reactions. But for others, the headset experience can bring a lot of joy.
One of the great things to remember with people with dementia is that all you have is now. You're living in the moment, and they have much to teach us about that. That, you know, you're freed up from all the clutter of life and all the stuff, and you can really, really experience real joy and real pleasure in the moment. So by actually watching a Way Back film, you can be there in a second, that feeling of, wow, I lived this, I was there, I wore that dress, I sat at that party table, I ate those cakes. And that's a fantastic validation of feeling I'm alive still.
I'm a bit overwhelmed. Really?
And that's not all the virtual reality we've got for you this week. Rick has nestled a couple of VR releases in his games review for us too.
The Escapists 2 is a sandbox strategy game set in the wonderful world of prison life, except you do actually have to escape, as the title suggests. It's similar to the first game in the series with 16-bit style graphics, but this time it's a bit more linear and a lot more polished. It's great fun and has a sense of humour that belies its subject matter. The one thing that I love about the Nintendo Switch version specifically is thanks to two-player co-op, you can each use a separate Joy-Con to play on the same little screen, so you can play it anywhere, even in a real prison.
LAPD, we'd like to take a look around.
The LA Noire series has been around since the PS3 and the Xbox 360. This version, however, is in virtual reality, and it draws 7 cases from the original game. And because you actually get to play them in first person, you actually get to feel much more close to the investigations that they present.
What's in it for you, Cole? More glory?
Driving is a bit odd because you have to use the controllers, one in each hand, to grip a virtual steering wheel, and combat sometimes is a little bit loose, but the investigation side of the game, the adventure itself, is fantastic.
I'm going to ask you again. Do you remember me?
I'll say it right out there, the Inpatient is deep, dark and very, very scary. However, it is a psychological VR game rather than a jump scare, although there are a few moments where you will jump out of your seat. It's set in a psychiatric hospital and you essentially have to basically work it out what you're even there for. The tense nature of this VR game is quite claustrophobic at times, but one of the best VR experiences we've had. It's more a story than an actual game as such, more interactive than, say, adventure, but I can't recommend it enough, certainly if you're not of a very nervous disposition.
Got him! Well, that's it. We've run out of time. But don't forget to join us for more Swipe next week. And in the meantime, follow us on Twitter @Sky News Swipe. Bye-bye.